Good evening and welcome back to CNN Money Switzerland. I'm Ana Maria Montero with your latest headlines this Thursday. Starting today in Switzerland, where the number of coronavirus cases rose by 66 compared to the previous day, with the total now at 30,126, according to the Office of Public Health. Now, unemployment numbers from the ongoing coronavirus crisis were also released by the Swiss Economic Office, with the rate now sitting at 3.3% for the month of April. That brings the total number of those registered as unemployed to around 153,000, the most we have seen since spring of 2017. That's up from 2.9% in March. And for all of the watch and jewelry lovers out there won't be a BASELWORLD in 2021. Its organizers, MCH Group, made the announcement today. The annual trade show was originally scheduled to take place on January the 28th to February 2nd of next year, after being postponed from coronavirus. Managing Director Michelle loris-melikoff said they are working intensively on options for new platforms, with more information expected in the summer. In the meantime, the group has reached an agreement with exhibitors from this year's canceled fair. And new figures out from the Federal Office of Statistics today highlight just how bad the situation has been for hoteliers. Overnight stays at hotels across Switzerland fell by 2/3, or 62%, in March, when restrictions came into force. Now, just 1.26 million nights were booked, with worst yet to show through in April and May's figures. Now, St. Moritz, one of Switzerland's prime tourist destinations, is hoping that its regular summer clientele of domestic visitors will be back as the restrictions are lifted. But they are not the only ones. Marijana Jakic, a member of the St. Moritz Management Board, warns that with different regions competing for domestic tourists this summer, the industry could have a price war on its hands. Yes, these travel bans and closing of the international borders really hit the heart of St. Moritz because you rely so heavily on international tourists.
Yeah. So summer, luckily we have like three I would say 2/3 of our clientele is more or less Swiss and German, so more of on a domestic market level. In winter, this is quite different. So there we have more of international clientele and less Swiss guests. So this is, let's say, also now for the summer. Normally, Moritz does not do any active promotion on the Swiss market, but this will be changed for now. So,
tell me what you're going to be doing to attract this domestic market.
Yeah, we think so. On our side, we think that this whole situation is not. It will not be It will not be a sprint. It will be more of a marathon. So everyone will try to attract the Swiss market, and then at some point in August and September attract also the international market. You know, jumping into this pool where everyone, there will be a lot of sharks doing the same thing. So we try to wait a little bit and see and prepare for the long run.
And when you mention this pool of sharks, are you referring to a price war that could be coming, and it will be coming?
Yeah. So I think so. I hope that Switzerland will never be forced to do that, because at some point then the quality and service would suffer.
Then how will you avoid getting into these price wars? How do you avoid the entire subject of falling into price dumping?
I think that also Switzerland tourism is against that. So we think that Switzerland in general and St. Moritz has the quality and has the service. And as soon as we get into price wars, I think we will be all losers at the moment. So we ask our partners to be very generous and also, let's say, flexible on the bookings and on the cancellations. This is what we have discussed, but no big price discounts. are suggested from our side. If our partners decide to do that, of course they can do it. But I think in a longer term, also with the shift of the values of all of us during this crisis and during Corona, I think this would be completely wrong to start this conversation.
From Athens to Brussels by plane, and then to London by train, CNN International's diplomatic editor Nick Robertson documents the once familiar and now unusual travel across Europe during the COVID-19 pandemic.
5:20 in the morning, Athens, checking out of the hotel. It's still dark outside. Long journey back to London by plane, by train, from a relative cold zone, COVID-19, to one of Europe's highest hot zones. See how it goes. The airport, sun's rising. Here we go. A lot of destinations. Only 2 of them are international. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers. Good luck. Bye. So that's interesting. Before you can get on this flight, they want to make sure you have a connection to your final destination, that you're traveling to your home country or have a reason for going to another country. Last look at Greece. Sure, the plane is clean, but these days you want to be doubly sure. So unlike the flight when we came in here, leaving on this plane, we have to wear the face mask. And when you go in the back of the cabin, there's almost 0 social distancing. Seats are full, 3 and 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Brussels. Keep your distances. We will let you know when the doors are open.
Well, that was quite an odd experience on a flight. 3.5 hours almost. And for the entire flight, the aircrew stayed behind their curtain. They didn't come out. That's not something I've seen before. When we get through, we're given this COVID-19 instructions. Notice that all persons entering Belgian territory. So these are the regulations you get handed when you arrive in Belgium. In Belgium, they're 1.5 meters. In the UK and in Greece, it's been 2 meters, but here it's 1.5 meters. The next stop is, well, customs and a train. Do you worry when you pick up passengers that maybe the passenger gives you the virus?
You can do
Yeah.
your job.
Yeah. Trying to find somewhere to get a coffee or a sandwich. I mean, I know you haven't eaten. We had a coffee in Athens at about 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's the middle of the day now, so little caffeine would help. Here we are at Eurostar. We're too early. This is the joy of traveling by plane and train when there are only 1 or 2 planes and trains. This is the only Eurostar today, so we'll wait 4 hours. Ugh.
Do your bit to look after yourself, your fellow passengers and the train crew by spreading out, by respecting social distancing and by wearing your mask at all times.
Unlike the plane, the train is really quite empty, and we just learned from one of the staff that there's no service on the train today. It really is bare bones operation. 14 hours to get here to London, but we've made it. Travel definitely has changed. It's slower. There are fewer frills. Do expect border guards to ask you more questions, but you know what? Underneath their masks, I have to say, everyone's got a big smile. We're all in this together. This is the new normal. Nick Robertson, CNN, St Pancras Station, London.
And with people around the world confined to their homes, the companies keeping everyone entertained are thriving. Nintendo said that profit in the 3 months to March more than tripled compared with the previous quarter. That's thanks in large part to the breakout success Animal Crossing New Horizons and its Nintendo Switch. The game, which was released mid-March, sold a record 11.8 million units in that month alone, making it the best Switch launch ever since the device was released in 2017. The World Economic Forum has released a new toolkit for businesses on using blockchain during the COVID-19 pandemic. Olivia Chang takes a look at how this is trying to tackle the weaknesses of current global supply chains.
We're in a strange time, and when the world is grappling with the pandemic, why have you come out with a toolkit to try and get companies to adopt blockchain technology?
So blockchain technology has a number of advantages over other options in this space, particularly when it comes to supply chains. Blockchain can promote more transparent supply chains, more resilient supply chains. And we started this project 18 months ago with the idea in mind that there was a need for more resilient and robust supply chains. So the timing is somewhat coincidental, though we're very grateful to have this output come out now.
How can blockchain actually come about in the most everyday solutions or everyday situations? I'm talking about when we're going to the supermarkets or just getting medical supplies where they really need to be.
I think the important thing to know about blockchain is, like most technology, when it's functioning really well, it's invisible. So you wouldn't actually know as a consumer whether or not you were engaging with a blockchain. But it can really help businesses with track and trace. They can understand where a product is at any given time in a really clear and transparent way. They can understand origins and sourcing to make sure that the masks, for example, that are reaching hospitals are actually certified according to international standards. Things like that blockchain can help with.
I know you said that it is invisible, but just so that we can picture it better in its uses, can you talk to us about companies that have already adopted blockchain to address specific weaknesses in their current supply chain?
I can. There has been quite a number of companies looking at this in the space. So in collaborative models. And I think one thing we've learned over the course of the past 5 or so years is that companies launching blockchains individually is not as successful as companies that go out together. So there are, for example, instances where IBMs come together with the World Health Organization and others looking at contact tracing and that kind of work to ensure that they can keep track of where individuals who test positive for the virus are. We're seeing examples of companies that want to ensure that slave labor, human trafficking labor, is not used for the development of their goods, their services. Everledger is an example of a startup working with a lot of different diamond companies to ensure that the diamonds that reach consumers are responsibly sourced. These are some examples that have arisen over the course of the past years and also in the immediate short term.
Over the course of putting together this toolkit, which I know took some time, you've had to engage with the governments as well as companies. What are some of the missteps or the mistakes that some may have made in this implementation of blockchain?
So blockchain is fundamentally a decentralized technology. And part of what we've seen is error where companies or institutions, governments, try to replicate their existing models with a very highly centralized source or a centralized location of data, for example. And what we've seen is that blockchain functions better as a team sport. So if you build a broader ecosystem or a coalition of entities that work together, even if they're your competitors, your suppliers, whatever it might be, then you can create a solution that can truly be decentralized and realize blockchain's benefits.
Okay, so to bring it all back down into a package, following the crisis, if you had to pinpoint it, how can we ensure that supply chains do remain transparent, do remain robust?
So use of a blockchain can really help with that. And a blockchain, when done responsibly in accordance with the principles we outline in our toolkit, and when accompanied by the proper policies around transparency and accountability. So let's recall, just because some information is transparent doesn't mean there's any recourse to if bad information gets put in there. You have to have a plan for what to do if things go awry. And I think we're seeing this pandemic spotlight some of the cases where we didn't have the ability to flexibly adapt or hold accountable parties that may not have been engaging in the most responsible of manners.
And Sheila, just one final question. Blockchain, as I understand, it takes time to implement. It's not something that companies can just install overnight, for example.
That's right.
How do you reconcile that with the fact that we are ourselves right now dealing with a crisis where there is a sense of urgency and we need to see some solutions?
I think it's really important. The point you make is really important, Olivia. This is not a kind of solution that can be rolled out overnight. Now, there are several very robust blockchain solutions that are in existence, but you can't just port those over directly into new situations. So you couldn't take a blockchain that had been built for diamonds, for example, and suddenly move that exact same solution into the food supply chain. You have to be very thoughtful about this. So these are medium to longer term solutions that we're hopeful over the course of the next year we'll see rolled out. And as we enter a period of economic recovery after the acute phase of the crisis has passed, we think blockchain can be an effective tool in helping us build a stronger system for the next time this comes along.
And that's it for now. Don't forget, you can find all of our content on the website, cnnmoney.ch, and you can stay in touch with us via all of our social media platforms. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.